The air was thick with silence, broken only by the distant echo of sirens and the occasional thud of something unidentifiable hitting the ground. A week ago, this part of Oregon had been a quiet rural town. Now it was a ghostly battlefield, emptied of all life except for the few who had been left behind. 17-year-old Mason Carter stared out from the rooftop of a diner, watching the last of the helicopters disappear into the sky. Dust swirled in their wake, leaving behind a town swallowed in shadows. His younger sister, Ellie, crouched beside him, her hand gripping the strap of her backpack so tightly her knuckles turned white. "They're gone," she whispered. Mason didn't answer. His heart was hammering against his ribs, not from fear, but from the weight of realization. They weren't coming back. The military had pulled out, the rescue convoys had stopped, and everyone deemed safe had already left. They were alone in a town overtaken by the infected. Not mindless creatures, they weren't like in the movies. These things were fast, coordinated, and terrifyingly quiet. No snarling, no groaning. Just the sound of their feet, always running, always hunting. Earlier that morning, a broadcast had blared across the emergency radio. Final evacuation point, Zone 9. Coordinates 45.2 by -122.6. No further extractions after 1500 hours. Mason, Ellie, and 3 others had made a desperate run for it: James, a former firefighter in his 40s, Tasha, a high school biology teacher, and Noah, a tech-savvy teenager who'd hacked into emergency comms to track convoy routes. They had packed quickly, dodged through alleyways, and avoided streets known to be overrun. But the route to Zone 9 had been cut off by a wall of abandoned cars and an infected crowd too large to sneak past. They watched the choppers lift off from a ridge above the zone, helpless and hearts sinking. The infected didn't even bother hiding anymore. They roamed freely, searching, listening. James adjusted the grip on his makeshift weapon, a long steel pipe he'd sharpened on one end. "We've got to find somewhere secure. If we stay in one place too long, they'll sniff us out. There's an old ranger station about 6 miles out, near the riverbed," Noah offered, glancing down at a worn-out tablet screen. "It's off the grid. If we can get there, we might be able to regroup, send a signal." "And survive?" Ellie asked. "Maybe," Noah replied. Mason knew there was no time to argue. "Let's move before nightfall." They climbed down the diner's fire escape carefully, sticking to the shadows. Every corner was a trap now. A barking dog in the distance suddenly went silent, and all 5 froze. That was never a good sign. The infected were drawn to movement, but they didn't just charge mindlessly, they stalked, ambushed, overwhelmed. They cut through the ruins of a gas station, keeping low. A billboard loomed above them, "America Strong. United we stand." Someone had spray-painted over it with a chilling message: "You left us." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Suddenly, a rustling came from inside the station. James motioned for everyone to stop. Mason pulled Ellie behind him instinctively. Silence. Then a dragging sound, slow, scraping. Noah readied a flare gun, the only real weapon he had. Tasha peered through a cracked window. "It's not one of them," she whispered. "It's a person. Looks like he's hurt." "Could be a trap," James muttered. But Mason stepped forward before anyone could stop him. "We can't leave someone if they're alive." He opened the door slowly, stepping inside. The smell hit him first: old gasoline, rotting food, and something else, the metallic tang of blood. A figure slumped near the ice machine, groaning softly. "Hey," Mason said cautiously. "We're not infected. We can help." The man lifted his head, eyes wide, pale, scared. He opened his mouth to speak, but all that came out was a warning. Too late. They followed me." Glass shattered behind Mason. Ellie screamed. 3 dark shapes burst through the window like wolves, fast, lean, with vacant eyes and twitching limbs. They didn't growl. They didn't hiss. They ran. Mason grabbed Ellie's hand and yanked her back as James tackled one of them, slamming it with his steel pipe. Tasha fired a flare blindly, the sudden light temporarily disorienting the other two. Noah kicked a shelving unit over, buying them a few seconds. They ran. Back through the alley, over fences, under collapsed scaffolding. Breathless. Shaken. Alive, for now. They regrouped in an old hardware store 2 blocks away, barricading the entrance. "They're hunting us now," James said grimly. "We're not just survivors anymore." Mason nodded, looking out through a broken window at the quiet town beyond. "No," he said. "We're the ones left behind. And we're not dying here." To be continued in Part 2, The Hunt Begins. Would you like me to continue with Part 2 now? Night fell over the town like a black curtain, swallowing streets, alleys, and shadows alike. The only light came from a pale crescent moon that painted the ruins in ghostly silver. Inside the hardware store, Mason and the others worked in tense silence, reinforcing the barricade with metal rods, wooden planks, and anything else they could scavenge. "We can't stay here," James whispered, sweat beating down his temple. "If those things track that man to the gas station, it means they're following scent, or sound, or something else. They're learning," Tasha added quietly. "They're not the same as they were last week. They're more organized." Ellie sat in a corner, arms wrapped around her knees. Why didn't they just attack the hardware store? Why didn't they follow us all the way here? Noah looked up from his tablet. "I think they like to wear you down. Exhaust you. Push you into mistakes. It's a tactic, like they're hurting us." The word hurting sent a chill through the group. Mason checked his watch, 2:17 a.m. The night wasn't even halfway over. They needed a plan. "We move at dawn. Until then, we rotate watch. James and I first." Everyone nodded, too tired to argue. The first hour passed quietly. Then, a soft tap echoed from the rooftop. Once. Twice. A pause. Then again. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Mason's eyes darted to James. Not wind. James crept toward the stairs, pipe in hand. Mason followed, step by step, the creaking boards beneath their feet sounding too loud. They reached the roof access door. James pointed to a shattered vent cover on the wall. It hadn't been broken earlier. Mason peeked through a crack in the door. Movement. A shape, thin, fast, low to the ground, slithered past. Then another. "Rooftops compromised," he whispered. "We need to get out now." They rushed back down. Mason signaled the others. "Grab your bags. We're moving, fast and quiet." Noah frowned. "Where?" "The ranger station. We head through the sewer access under 3rd Avenue. They won't expect that." "But what if they do?" Ellie asked. "Then we fight," James said grimly. Within 5 minutes, they were out the back, moving through the narrow alleyways behind the hardware store. Noah led the way, tablet in hand, guiding them with offline maps and satellite images from before the blackout. The air in the town had changed. It was heavier. Still. Like the town itself was holding its breath. When they reached the metal sewer grate behind an old bakery, Noah pried it open with a crowbar. One by one, they descended into the dark. The tunnels beneath the city hadn't seen maintenance in years, but they offered a temporary escape from the watchful eyes above. The group moved carefully through the narrow space, their footsteps echoing softly. Tasha marked each turn with chalk, just in case. "I feel like we're being watched," Ellie whispered. They were. Far behind them, in the dark, a soft scraping began. James raised a hand. Stop. Silence. Then, suddenly, splash. Something was in the tunnel with them. Mason turned off his flashlight. The others did the same. They crouched in the dark, listening. The infected didn't make noise unless they wanted to. This one wanted them to know. Run, Mason whispered. They took off, splashing through the ankle-deep water. Behind them, the thing moved faster, scraping against the walls, its footsteps getting louder. They reached a service ladder and climbed quickly. James was last up. As he pulled the hatch closed, something slammed into it from below. Not once, but repeatedly. Boom. 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 Then silence. They lay flat on the forest floor above, panting. They'd made it to the outskirts of town. In the distance, just over the trees, they could see the faint lights of the ranger station, powered by solar panels, isolated from the grid. Mason helped Ellie to her feet. We're almost there. But the quiet didn't comfort him. Because that tapping on the roof, that scrape in the sewer, it hadn't been random. It had been timed. Coordinated. And if the infected could set traps, that meant this was no longer just survival. It was war. To be continued in Part 3, The Ranger's Secret. Want me to continue with Part 3 now? The sun had just begun to rise when the group reached the ranger station, an old, two-story wooden structure tucked into the trees by a dried-up riverbed. Solar panels on the roof hummed faintly, still intact, and a satellite dish pointed uselessly toward the sky. James scouted the perimeter while the others stayed low behind an overturned jeep nearby. No movement. No signs of a breach, he reported after a few minutes. Doors are locked, windows boarded up from the inside. Either it's abandoned, or someone doesn't want to be found. Mason stepped forward. Let's find out. Noah pulled a compact receiver from his pack and began scanning local frequencies. Meanwhile, Tasha carefully approached the front door and knocked, just once. A tense moment passed. Then the peephole slid open, and a deep voice came through the wood. Identify yourselves. Fast. James raised both hands. Survivors. 5 of us. Unarmed, mostly. Just need shelter. Silence. Then, click. The door creaked open, revealing a man in his 60s with a heavy beard and sharp, wary eyes. He held a revolver loosely at his side. You've got 30 seconds to convince me you're not infected. We ran through a sewer, climbed a hill, and haven't slept in a day, Mason replied quickly. If we were infected, you'd know already. The old man looked them over. After a tense beat, he nodded. Get inside. Quickly. The ranger station's interior was dusty but functional, canned food stacked in crates, first aid supplies organized on a table, a generator humming in the basement. I'm Ranger Beck, the man said as he closed the door behind them. Been holding out here since the last broadcast. You picked a good place. They don't come out this far often. Mason exchanged a glance with James. They're changing. Coordinating. They'll come eventually. Beck didn't look surprised. He walked over to a cabinet, unlocked it, and revealed a wall of documents and hand-drawn maps. I know. I've been tracking them since day one. He pointed to a marked map on the table. See these red circles? That's where they attacked in patterns, blocking exits, flushing people into traps. They're not just evolving, they're being led. By what? Ellie asked softly. Beck looked grim. That's what scares me. They're not animals anymore. Some of them think. Tasha frowned. You mean they're intelligent? No. Worse, Beck said. They're organized. Something is directing them, something smarter than all of us combined. Everyone fell silent. Noah tapped his tablet. I intercepted encrypted signals a few days ago. Not government. Something else. Strong transmission, no origin. It was controlling drone activity before the grid fell. Could be connected. Could be, Beck said. Or could be the start of something worse. Suddenly, a red light on the station's panel began to flash. Motion sensors tripped. Beck turned to the monitors. Something's moving in the forest. He flipped through camera feeds, trees swaying, birds scattering, then stopped on a grainy shot of a humanoid figure crouched by the waterline. It was dragging something. No, someone. Mason leaned in. That's a person. Beck zoomed in. The figure was tall, thin, unnaturally still, its skin ashen, its eyes black. But the thing it was dragging was alive. Barely. Another survivor? Ellie whispered. Beck grabbed his rifle. If it is, they won't survive long out there. James stood. Then we go get them. Beck looked at him. You sure? Could be bait. Doesn't matter, James replied. We don't leave people behind. Beck hesitated, then nodded. Fine. You, me, and the kid with the tablet. Mason, you stay and protect the others. No, Mason said firmly. I'm going too. Beck studied him for a moment, then shrugged. For it is. Let's move. The rescue party exited the back of the station, cutting through the underbrush in silence. The woods were thick, and the ground soft from recent rain. They spotted the figure by the river, a twisted silhouette standing over the body of a teenage girl. Mason raised his hand. Wait. Look at her arm. It was marked with something, paint, perhaps, or a crude tattoo. A symbol. A circle with lines shooting out, like a sun. Beck paled. I've seen that before. That's not random. Suddenly, the creature turned its head, no sound, no movement. Just stillness. Watching. Then it fled into the trees, disappearing in an instant. James rushed to the girl. She's breathing. Noah scanned the woods. Why did it leave her? Why spare her? They didn't get an answer. But as they carried her back, Beck whispered more to himself than anyone else. They're not just evolving. They're experimenting. And with that, the forest seemed a little darker. Thunder rumbled in the distance as the group returned to the ranger station with the unconscious girl. Her skin was pale, lips cracked, and that strange sun-like mark on her forearm pulsed with faint heat, as if recently branded. Beck laid her on a cot and checked her vitals. She's dehydrated. Fever's high. But she's stable, for now. Mason stood by the window, eyes scanning the tree-line. That thing could have killed her, but it didn't. It brought her close enough for us to find. It wanted us to take her. James nodded grimly. Which means we just walked into a trap. Again. Tasha handed Ellie a wet cloth for the girl's forehead. She's just a kid. Same age as you. What kind of monster uses someone like that as bait? Noah had returned to his tablet, his fingers flying across the cracked screen. Whatever did this, it's not working alone. I've been tracking low-frequency pulses. Radio waves, coded signals. All coming from the same region, near Ridgepoint Military Facility, about 40 miles west. Beck looked up sharply. Ridgepoint's supposed to be sealed. No one's heard anything from that place since the second outbreak. Exactly, Noah said. That girl, she's connected to it. I bet that mark on her arm isn't just a symbol. It's a tag. Suddenly, the girl's eyes shot open. She gasped and sat up violently, knocking over a metal tray. Mason rushed to calm her, but she pulled back, eyes wide with terror. "They hear us," she croaked. "They're always listening." Beck crouched beside her. "What's your name, kid?" She hesitated, shaking. "Kayla. I escaped them. The lab. The place with white walls. They put things inside people. Experiments." James leaned forward. "What kind of experiments?" "Control," she whispered. "They wanted to make a new kind of human. Stronger. Faster. Obedient. But it didn't work. It made something else instead." Beck's face darkened. "And what about that mark on your arm?" Her eyes filled with tears. "It's how they track us. The ones who escape." The room fell silent. Ellie whispered, "They're coming for her, aren't they?" Kayla nodded slowly. "And for anyone who helps me." Mason turned to the group. "We leave by sunrise. We're not waiting for them to find us." But before anyone could respond, the station lights flickered, and then went out. Noah glanced up. "EMP?" Beck cursed. "They've jammed us. Solar's still intact, but backup systems just got fried." A distant whirring sound broke the silence. It was faint, mechanical, like rotors. James bolted to the window. A small drone hovered near the tree line, blinking red. Then it zipped away. "They know we're here," he muttered. "They're mapping the place." Mason grabbed a duffel bag from under a cabinet and began packing supplies. "We can't stay. Ridgepoint might have answers, and if what Kayla says is true, we have to stop whatever they're doing." Beck hesitated, looking around the station. "This place has been home for a long time. But you're right. We leave before dark." Outside, the rain began to fall. As the group prepared to move, Kayla approached Noah. Her voice was weak. They talked to each other, not with words, but noise. Like whispers inside your head. "You can't always tell what's real." "You mean like telepathy?" Noah asked. She shook her head. "Like static, that grows louder the closer they get." Noah frowned, then opened a new audio recording app. "Next time you hear it, tell me. If we can trace the signal, we can track them before they track us." The plan was simple: take the east road out of the forest, avoid cities, and head for Ridgepoint by the back route, a path Noah had marked on his map using pre-collapse terrain scans. By dusk, they were on the move. The woods were quiet. Too quiet. Kayla clung to Ellie's side, eyes darting nervously. Halfway down a dirt path, the group froze. A voice drifted through the trees, whispering. Calling. It sounded like Beck. But Beck stood right there, gun raised, frozen in place. Then it changed. Ellie heard her mother's voice. Mason heard his brother, who died in the first wave. The whispers twisted, pulling at their minds, their memories. Kayla clutched her ears and screamed, "Don't listen." Beck fired blindly into the trees, snapping everyone back into focus. Noah's tablet went wild, static across every channel. James gritted his teeth. "They're here." From the shadows, movement. Not dozens, hundreds. Figures with sun-marked skin, eyes glowing faintly in the dark, emerging from the trees with eerie precision. They weren't running. They were marching. And in the middle, watching silently, was something else. Not a zombie. Not a human. Something in between. It smiled. And the whispers grew louder. The forest seemed to close in on them. Hundreds of glowing eyes watched from behind the trees. The silence was more terrifying than any roar. Every figure stood motionless, their heads tilted slightly, listening to something no one else could hear. Beck gripped her rifle. "Fall back. Now. Stay tight." But the whispering grew louder, pressing in from all sides like an invisible fog. The group staggered, trying to stay together. Mason shouted over the sound, "Don't listen. Block it out." James grabbed Ellie's arm and pulled her forward, shielding her with his body. Kayla's face twisted in pain as she clutched her head. "They're not just hearing us," she cried. "They're inside us. Searching." Tasha fired a warning shot into the trees, but not a single creature flinched. Beck snapped, "Go. Head east, ridge path." The group took off, feet pounding against the rain-soaked ground. Noah struggled to carry both his gear and Kayla, who stumbled with every step. He handed his bag to Mason and lifted her onto his back. "We've got about 2 minutes before they follow," he said breathlessly. "How do you know?" Mason asked. "They've mapped this terrain. They know exactly where we'll run. But they're waiting for something." As they dashed through the underbrush, Ellie suddenly stopped. "Wait, listen." Everyone froze. The whispers were gone, replaced by a low, rhythmic pounding. Like distant footsteps, or drums. Then it hit them. They weren't chasing. They were surrounding. James cursed. "They're hurting us." They reached an old hunting trail, muddy and barely visible. Beck scanned the surroundings. "This leads to an abandoned mine. We can hide there, regroup, block the entrance." Tasha looked back. "You really think we can stop them? You saw their eyes, those things weren't zombies. They were organized." Beck's voice was sharp. "They're not invincible. They're evolving," Kayla whispered. "Learning." The group slid down the hill toward the mine's gaping mouth. The air inside was thick with dust and mold, but it offered something they desperately needed: distance. Darkness. Cover. They huddled near an old cart tunnel while Noah activated a portable jammer. "This should mess with their signals. At least buy us some time." Kayla lay on the floor, her breathing shallow. "It's not over. That thing in the woods, it's not like the others. It remembers being human." Beck knelt beside her. "What is it?" Kayla hesitated. "They called him Subject Zero. First successful hybrid. Stronger. Smarter. And angry. He can reach the others without sound. Without tech. Just thought." Mason sat against the tunnel wall, his voice grim. "A telepathic commander of an undead army. Great." James checked his ammo. "So what's the plan? Wait until daylight and hope they get bored?" Noah shook his head. "They won't. But I found something in the military files, Project Thorn. A failsafe, designed in case the subjects turned hostile. Supposed to be stored inside Ridgepoint's main facility." Beck leaned forward. "A weapon?" Noah shrugged. "A disruption signal, designed to short out neural link frequencies. Could fry whatever's controlling them, or us." Tasha crossed her arms. "So we walk into a facility overrun with experiments, just to find something that might work?" Ellie stepped forward, voice clear. "If we don't try, we die." A sudden sound stopped them cold, a rustle, close, too close. James signaled everyone to silence and moved slowly toward the tunnel entrance. He held his breath, raising his weapon. A pair of eyes met his in the dark. Human. Terrified. A boy, no older than 12, stepped into view, his hands raised. "Please," he whispered. "They're coming. I barely got away." Beck rushed forward. "What's your name?" "Liam," the boy gasped. "They took my sister. I followed them. Saw the one who leads. He's not like the others, he talks to them. Like a god." Kayla sat up, pale and shaking. "It's him. Subject 0. Liam nodded quickly. He's building something. A machine. He says it'll spread the signal to the whole country. Make everyone hear the voices. Tasha's eyes narrowed. You mean, turn everyone into them? Liam nodded. The group stared at one another, the weight of it crashing down. Beck stood slowly. Then we go to Ridgepoint. We end this before that machine goes online. Mason grabbed his gear. We're fighting something we don't even understand. Doesn't matter, Beck replied. We're not fighting for ourselves anymore. Kayla locked eyes with Beck. You're fighting for the last of the real humans. Outside the mine, the whispers returned, closer now, stronger. And among them, a voice deeper than all the others. You cannot run. The morning light struggled to break through the heavy clouds as the group left the mine, nerves tight and weapons ready. The world beyond was quieter now, but it wasn't peace. It was a warning. Too quiet. Like the land itself was holding its breath. Beck took point, rifle scanning the tree line as they moved. Ridgepoint military facility lay 25 miles west, and the terrain between was a mix of abandoned farmland, broken highways, and small, overgrown towns swallowed by nature, and something darker. Kayla walked beside Ellie, weaker now, but alert. He knows we're coming, she murmured. Subject 0. He wants us there. Then let's not disappoint him, Mason said grimly, loading his last magazine. Noah had downloaded an old satellite map onto his tablet before they lost access to the network. There's a back route, an old service tunnel under the hills. It leads directly into the eastern hangar bay. It might still be intact. James raised a brow. Or it might be crawling with things waiting to rip us apart. Beck looked over her shoulder. Everything's a risk now. But at least that tunnel keeps us out of sight. They crossed an overgrown bridge where rusted cars stood like tombstones. Liam, the boy who had joined them, paused and pointed ahead. There's a village past this bend. That's where they took the others. My sister too. I saw the big one there. You mean Subject 0? Beck asked. Liam nodded. He doesn't kill right away. He talks. Makes you listen. Then you change. Not with a bite. With the voice. Kayla winced. That's how they're spreading it now. Like a virus in your head. Noah tapped his earpiece, still detecting faint static. They're testing range. If the machine works like Liam said, they won't need the undead anymore. They'll just turn people remotely. The group moved cautiously through the remains of the village. Signs of a struggle were everywhere, doors shattered, claw marks across brick walls, bloodless clothing discarded in piles. The air smelled like metal and mildew. Suddenly, a figure stumbled from a doorway. Everyone raised their weapons, until they saw the man's face. Alive. Human. But barely. His eyes were wide with fear, his mouth stitched closed crudely with wire. His arms bore the same sun symbol brand, and his hands trembled uncontrollably. Beck rushed over, helping him to sit. Tasha tried to remove the wires from his mouth, but he flinched and shook his head violently, pointing to his ears. Noah realized it first. He's deaf. They made him deaf so he couldn't hear the whispers. The man finally pulled a crumpled photo from his pocket, Liam's sister, smiling in it. Liam gasped. That's her. The man pointed west, then made a gesture with his hand, 5 fingers down to a fist. 5 hours, Beck translated. Until, what? The broadcast? The man nodded weakly, then made another sign. He pointed at his temple, then at Kayla. Kayla stepped back. He says I can stop it. Beck looked at her. Why? Because I still hear them, but I don't obey. They lost control of me. Noah's eyes lit up. You're the key. If we can sync your brain pattern to the disruptor signal, we could override the hive frequency, Kayla finished. Shut them all down. But we have to reach the Ridgepoint console first, Noah added. And hope it's not completely destroyed. Beck made the call. We go through the tunnel. No more detours. Everyone stay sharp. They made it to the old service tunnel by midday. The entrance was half buried under debris and rusted steel, but Liam found a path through. Inside, the tunnel was cold, wet, and lined with flickering emergency lights, somehow still powered after all this time. They walked in silence, every step echoing through the steel corridor. Drips fell from pipes above. Strange graffiti marked the walls, symbols matching the one burned into Kayla's arm. Then, a voice echoed through the tunnel. Deep. Calm. Too familiar. You bring the girl. How thoughtful. They froze. The voice continued, vibrating through the metal. You believe she is your salvation. She is not. She is my beginning. Beck raised her rifle. Keep moving. They ran now, light bouncing off the damp walls. Ahead, the tunnel split in two. James and Mason scouted each path. Mason returned first. Left paths blocked. We take the right. The voice returned. You run toward the end, not away from it. Come. Witness rebirth. As they emerged from the tunnel into a vast, rusted hangar bay, they saw it. A towering machine surrounded by bodies, both living and undead. Wires fed into their skulls. And at the center stood him. Subject 0. No longer fully human. No longer fully dead. His glowing eyes locked onto Kayla. And he smiled. To be continued in Part 7, the signal must die. Would you like me to continue with Part 7 now? The hangar bay was massive, half-collapsed, but still alive with an eerie hum that seemed to throb through the floor. Giant power cables snaked across the ground toward a pulsing core in the center of the room. Bodies, both restrained and eerily still, were wired into machines that blinked with red lights. The entire setup looked less like a lab and more like a shrine. Subject 0 stood tall before the signal tower. His body was distorted, more human than zombie, but not entirely either. Skin stretched tightly over lean muscle, eyes glowing with a faint amber hue, veins pulsing with black fluid. His voice didn't echo, it vibrated inside their heads. You came so far. Risked so much. For what? His gaze locked onto Kayla. To stop me? Or to join me? Kayla's knees weakened. The whispers in her head turned into sharp pulses, like radio signals being fine-tuned. Beck raised her rifle, finger on the trigger. We're not here to negotiate. Subject 0 smiled. You already lost. Then, with a gesture, the bodies around him twitched, and rose. They weren't mindless. They moved in unison, like soldiers responding to a silent command. Take cover. Beck shouted. Gunfire lit up the dark hangar. Tasha and Mason flanked left, laying down suppressing fire. James and Beck moved right, covering Noah as he rushed toward the console near the base of the tower. Kayla crouched behind a broken generator, gripping her head. He's pushing harder. I can feel the others, he's calling them. Liam huddled beside her, frightened but determined. What do we do? You run if this goes bad, she said. No questions. Noah reached the control panel and yanked off the rusted casing. The disruptor program's still here, but it's locked behind a biometric gate. Kayla limped over, eyes wild. Let me try. Beck spotted her and shouted over the gunfire. We'll cover you, go. Subject 0 moved then, faster than expected. He dropped from the platform in a blur, landing near Kayla. James rushed forward to intercept him, and was thrown across the hangar like a ragdoll. "You think you can end me with a machine?" Zero snarled. "I am the future." Kayla stepped in front of the console, defiant. "Then you're a future that needs to be erased." She slammed her palm against the scanner. The machine hesitated. Then beeped. "Access granted. Disruptor initializing." Subject Zero's calm shattered. He lunged forward, but Beck intercepted him, firing a shock round directly into his chest. It slowed him for a second, just enough. Lights flickered. The tower began to pulse, and a deep tremor ran through the ground. All around them, the Hive soldiers froze mid-attack. Their eyes twitched. Some clutched their heads. Others screamed. Subject Zero fell to one knee, snarling in pain. "No. Not yet." Kayla's nose bled. Her pulse spiked. She could feel the signal syncing with her mind. The pain was unbearable, but it was working. "Keep him busy," she shouted. Tasha threw a stun grenade toward Zero, and it exploded in a flash of light and sound. Mason pulled James back, who was barely conscious. "He's alive, but messed up bad." Noah watched the console as progress bars ticked upward. Disruptor reaching max range. 15 seconds. But then, the console sparked. A failsafe protocol activated. The machine began to reverse the sync. "It's rejecting her." Noah yelled. "It's adapting to him." Subject Zero laughed through blood and fury. "I told you. I am the evolution." Kayla screamed as the mental feedback intensified. Liam grabbed her hand. "You're not alone," he said. "Don't let him in." Something changed in her eyes then. A stillness. Focus. She reached deeper into the connection, and pushed back. She didn't just sync with the signal. She overrode it. Zero froze mid-laugh. What are you doing?" Kayla stepped toward him, face pale but calm. "Turning the signal against you." The tower erupted in a burst of white light. One by one, the Hive soldiers collapsed, motionless. A wave of silence rolled through the hangar. Subject Zero clutched his head, stumbling backward. You don't know what you've done." He collapsed, smoke rising from his body. Noah checked the readings. Signals down. Hive frequency is gone. He's severed. The survivors looked around. It was over. For now. Kayla knelt beside Zero's motionless form. He wasn't a monster in the beginning. He was made into one. Beck lowered her rifle. "That doesn't mean we stop watching. This isn't the end." Noah nodded slowly. "If there's one Subject Zero, there could be more." Kayla rose, tired but resolute. "Then we find them. And we end it for good." Outside, the sky was clearing. But far in the distance, on a different frequency, something else listened. To be continued in Part 8, The Last Frequency. Shall I continue with the final part, Part 8? The next morning, sunlight pierced through the clouds for the first time in weeks. The storm had passed, but the scars were fresh: burned-out vehicles, broken fences, bloodied uniforms, and the crumbling remnants of the facility that had once broadcast a nightmare. Inside the hangar, silence reigned. Subject Zero's body was cold, still, and human again. Whatever had turned him into a Hive leader, be it science or something darker, was now purged. But no one celebrated. Not yet. Beck sat on a crate, rifle resting across her lap. She watched the others quietly, Kayla helping Noah patch up James, Tasha loading gear into their stolen military truck, and Liam sharing water with Mason as they kept watch. "Still nothing on the scanners?" Beck asked. Noah shook his head. The entire eastern grid is offline. No signals, no interference. It's like everything just died with him. But that's the problem, Kayla murmured. It was too easy. The network was massive, global. There had to be more than one source. Beck narrowed her eyes. You think Zero was just a transmitter? Kayla nodded. A relay. Not the origin. Mason stood and approached, holding a half-burned notebook he found near the lab's core. There's coordinates in here, encrypted, but I got most of it. Some kind of bunker out west. Labeled as primary uplink. Whatever that means. Beck took the notebook, flipping through. This might be where it all started. Tasha tightened the last strap on the truck's cargo. Then we go. Finish what we started. Liam looked uncertain. And if there's another Zero? Or worse? Kayla knelt beside him. Then we do what we've always done. We fight. Together. The group piled into the vehicle and drove west. 3 days later, Nevada Badlands. A dry, cracked desert stretched endlessly. Red dust choked the sky, and distant ridges loomed like jagged teeth. But beneath one canyon wall, hidden under decades of rock and camouflage netting, was a steel hatch. The uplink station. It was buried, secure, and humming with low-frequency static that buzzed in the back of their skulls the closer they got. Feels like something's alive down there, Mason muttered. Kayla touched the metal hatch. Her hand tingled. It's not broadcasting anymore. Just waiting. Beck and Tasha pried the hatch open. The air that rushed out was warm. Metallic. Old. Inside was a long staircase descending into darkness. No resistance. No traps. No guards. The silence was worse. They entered slowly, guns ready, steps echoing. The corridor opened into a massive chamber filled with servers, rusting consoles, and a glass tank in the center. Inside it floated something not quite human. Its skin was blackened and transparent, pulsing with faint red light. Tubes fed into its spine, brain, and heart. Monitors displayed brainwave patterns and coordinates. Noah approached one of the terminals. This is it. This thing was the original source. Kayla stepped closer. Her voice dropped. It's not alive. But it's not dead either. They must have found it, used its signal to create control tech. To make Subject Zero. And someone designed it all, Beck growled. This wasn't random. Noah tapped a flashing message on the screen. Auto restart in 2:46. Kayla's heart dropped. It's going to reboot the network. Then we shut it down for good, Beck said. How do we kill it? The coolant lines, Noah pointed. If we destroy them, the core overheats. Everything in here melts. Tasha pulled out the explosives they'd salvaged. I'll plant the charges. Everyone moved fast, planting, wiring, double-checking fuses. 122. Kayla stood by the tank, staring at the creature. It's like it's watching us. Noah read another file. There were more experiments. Subjects in other countries. They were building a global hive. Mason exhaled. So even if we destroy this one, we buy time, Beck said. Time for the rest of the world to prepare. 0:15. Everyone rushed back to the exit. Kayla stayed a second longer, placing a hand on the glass. You tried to control us. But you never understood us. 0:04. 0:03. She turned and ran. 0:02. 0:01. Boom. The facility erupted behind them as they dove for cover. The canyon shook. A tower of black smoke and fire shot into the sky. They lay there in the dust, coughing, covered in ash, but alive. Later that night, they camped under the stars, silent for a long time. Finally, Kayla spoke. "It's not over." "Not yet. But it's a start," Liam said. "You gave people hope." Kayla smiled faintly. "No. We did." Beck looked out at the horizon. "We fight smarter now. Harder. No more running." Tasha raised a toast with her water bottle. "To the ones who were left behind, and survived." Everyone raised theirs in return. Dead America wasn't just a wasteland anymore. It was a battlefield. A mission. A cause. And they were its last defenders. The end. Would you like a new story next?